Hi, I'm Lucy Townsley and I specialise in helping women in all areas of their life. So if it's the beginning of your cycle, trouble with your periods, going on to trying to get pregnant, or if you're having any difficulties with pregnancy, going on to having your babies, because sometimes we need a lot of support in that area as well, and then moving into perimenopause and menopause. And today I'm joined by Nicola. She is a doula coach. And I'm going to let her tell you all about this amazing thing that you can have done. But also, I always get to say this: if you can either follow or subscribe to the channel, would be brilliant. So, welcome to the podcast. Tell me a little bit more about what you do.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm very honoured to be on your podcast. So, I am a birth and postnatal doula, and what that actually involves is that through pregnancy, labour and birth, and into the postpartum period, I will be your guide. I'll hold your hand. I look after you. So with pregnancy, what we do is I will help you draw up a birth plan. I discuss labour, stages of labour, positioning for labour. We look at pain coping techniques, what to expect, how I can support you and your partner. And my goal is to give you the most amazing, positive birth experience that you can have, no matter how your birth unfolds, whether it ends up being exactly to your birth plan, or if it's changed along the way, you can still have a birth that you enjoy and are grateful for and are happy with how it unfolded, even if you end up having a cesarean that you didn't want. So I don't have any preferences of I'm only working with natural women who want to birth in the forest with chanting and things like that. Whatever the mom wants is how I will support her. I'm not here to change her mind. I'm just there to give her evidence-based information and to support her and her wishes and to protect that birthing space. So I do actually see myself as a bit of a fairy godmother, like Cinderella's fairy godmother who wished that she could go to the ball, and she just sat there with her tea thinking, oh, I wish I could go to the ball. And then all of a sudden the fairy godmother appeared and she made her wishes come true with a bit of magic and some understanding. And that's how I see myself as a doula. In the postpartum period, what I do is that I come into the family's home, and whatever's needed for that day. So perhaps mom's had a really tough night and baby's been fractious and feeding all night, and all she wants to do is have a long bath and jump into bed. So what I'll do is I'll take baby, she will close the door, let her go and bath and catch up on some sleep. I'll look after the baby. Perhaps I'll bring her some breakfast or a healthy, nutritious lunch after she's woken up. Whatever's needed for that day. You know, maybe she's really behind on the laundry, so I'll pop in a load of washing for her and maybe make a meal for the family at the end of the day. So just practically being on hand postpartum just helps them transition to motherhood and all the responsibilities that were there before. So that's basically what I do in a nutshell.
That's amazing, because you know when you come home with your new baby and your first bit, especially the first time, especially because I would treat a lot of new moms that have gone through IVF or IUI to have their babies, and you know they come in and then I remember when I was handed Hannah at the hospital door, and she's 25 now, and coming down the steps and going, okay, what do I do now?
What am I meant to do now? Where are my qualifications?
Yeah, there's no book. They don't send you with the booklet of things, but that support that you would give a new mom is massive, huge, I would say. Yeah. I'd love if I had that, if I'd known about it.
I know. Unfortunately, here in Northern Ireland, postpartum care isn't that widely accepted. I think, you know, women are meant to be perceived as being strong and independent, and I can do this all. But 20 years ago, there was such a strong sense of community where community would help. Mom and dad were maybe living next door or in the same street, and they'd be able to give that support. And that support system is becoming so sparse right now. Families are dispersed all over the globe, and there's nobody to support a new family. So mom's struggling there all by herself, and she doesn't have that support system. And then asking for help is like, I can't ask for help. What's everyone going to think? That I'm not coping. So, sometimes we need to reframe our thinking and think, well, I'm not coping. Maybe the strength is actually having the courage and admitting that and looking for help out somewhere else, resourcing it.
Yeah, so, it is actually, because I'm going back to me again, and you told me you have 3 children, but I remember coming out of that hospital, and I lived in Southern Ireland, and my family were all over in the UK, and my partner, his parents had both weren't around anymore. They were both dead, so I had no support, and I just had this tiny baby, and my partner was back to work, and I was at home, and I found being at home alone really hard. Even I remember the first time I took Hannah out in the buggy. We lived in Cashel, and I remember going down the street with her as a little tiny baby, and like every bump in the pavement, I was really scared I was damaging her.
Oh, bless you.
You know what I mean? Just the bumping of the pavement. I was like, who makes these pavements so rough and up and down but it was terrible. And I was trying to cushion her in, but it's just the not knowing that.
Especially with your first.
Yeah, exactly. The first time. And it is about, trusting that you can do it right. But it's.
Yeah. And I think that that trust has been, or that our instinct has been so silenced by social media and what everyone else is doing, that we don't trust our instinct. And it's just learning to quieten that background noise and trusting what your inner voice is telling you to do, because it's inside you and you really know what to do. You really do. I remember with my first being so angry that I wasn't warned that this is really hard work and it's overwhelming, and baby can cry all night and you still got to carry on the next day. I was so angry that I wasn't warned about this. But I think, you look back in hindsight. I mean, my eldest is 25, and it's like 3 months. Those first 3 months are so intense. But in the whole span of 25 years, it's like goes in a flash, and we forget how intense those first few weeks can actually be.
Do you think it's something that I remember when it happened to me, and everyone goes, oh, welcome to the club, no more sleep, and a bit of a negative connotation to having a new baby. And it can put fear, there's a fear that people have then if they are trying to get pregnant. Is this going to be it? Am I not going to get sleep anymore? Or, because of that maybe media or even your friends telling you how, or even the silence of it. I remember a friend, or actually it's either a friend or a client, I can't remember now, telling me that how, a bit like you, angry she was that her friends didn't share with her how hard this was going to be.
Yeah.
That it was something she had to figure out herself.
Yeah. And I think also some people are just, they want to make a good impression. Like, I'm a really good mom and my baby's sleeping through at 2 weeks, and it's like, really just get rid of all the lies and just be real, be authentic, and, share your journey as you're going through it. You don't have to put on this big bravado. I mean, don't go and tell all and sundry that it's, it's terrible. But I mean, your close support system and your closest friends and your family, let them in and tell them that it's really difficult, or you really wanted to breastfeed and it's not working. You've got cracked nipples and it's so painful, and you're needing extra support. Maybe the mom wants to breastfeed and everyone's saying, well, it's not working and it's painful. Why don't you just put baby on the bottle? And it's like inside her, she just wants somebody to say, you're doing a really great job. Push through a little bit longer. Try until the end of the week, or let's get a breastfeeding consultant in, or, know your options.
Yeah, someone to help. So when is the best time if someone who is planning on getting pregnant or is pregnant, that they contact you for this? When do they start working with you?
So I'd say, pregnancy, you become so much more aware of your pregnancy when you've had your scan, when you've had your checkup. The first trimester, you might be feeling absolutely rotten, struggling with morning sickness and tiredness. So I would recommend that people start looking for a doula in their second trimester. So, don't leave it too late.
12 weeks, past 12 weeks, and after 12 weeks, you recommend it?
I would say maybe 15 weeks.
15 weeks.
15 weeks. Well, I mean, it really doesn't matter. I mean, I've had people, contact me and saying, oh, my baby's due in a month, am I too late? And if I've got a gap in the diary, then that's absolutely fine. I can work with you, or even if it's like, my partner's got COVID, please can you come and do last minute support? But it's best that you can develop a relationship of trust and even, just friendship that develops between the two of you, so that, that you as the client are able to trust me as the doula, that what, the advice and the suggestions that I'm giving you are to benefit you. So we, second trimester, we start working together, and then at 38 weeks. Sorry,
I'm interrupting you. What type of help do you do for them in the say like the second trimester? What would you say I came to you, no, I'm not having any more babies, okay, just put it out there. I've done my bit. I have 3, that's plenty.
Absolutely.
So if I was imagining I was pregnant again, I can imagine PJ's horror that we're having another baby. I'd come to you. So what would happen? What would be the process?
So you'd reach out to me and say, I'm interested in having a doula. So I'm like, that's great. Let's get together. So it would be virtually or over a coffee. And it's really important that we click, because I'm coming into such a sacred and holy space. You as the person who's hiring the doula really need to like the person opposite the coffee table or across the screen, really need to like that person. If you feel, don't like the way they talk, or they're a bit too brash, or they're a bit too quiet, whatever it might be, you've got to like that person. So if you don't like the first doula that you are interviewing, really look around and see, I'd like to interview a couple of doulas and see who really resonates with me. And then on signing a contract, I am available to answer any of your concerns or queries. I've got books that I can lend you. And then I give you two 2-hour sessions where we will go through a birth plan. We'll look through stages of labor, what they feel like, what I can do for you, what you should be doing. We'll look at the hormones of birth and how to facilitate oxytocin and reduce the adrenaline. We will look at the golden hour, establishing breastfeeding if that's what you're wanting, and then looking at your postpartum plan, because so often it's like a wedding. We look at the wedding day and we're planning everything and we're throwing all the money into the wedding, but we haven't prepared for our marriage. And so often it's the same with having a baby. We look at the birth, but we don't have any plans for our postnatal period. And then I go on call at 38 weeks. So I make sure that there's nothing, nothing big on my schedule. I make sure I'm going to bed early. I'm not eating curries and garlic, not drinking any alcohol. My bag's ready and packed at the front door. And when you feel that you're going into labor and you're needing my support, you just pick up that phone no matter what time, and I'll come over to you and help you through your birth and your labor and your birth.
Would you be there during the birth?
Yes. Yeah. So I'll work with the midwives in a very respectful relationship, work with the partner. So whenever I have an interview and if the partners come along, it's very important for me to say to the partner, I'm not here to replace you. I'm actually here to, it's such a great opportunity for intimacy to deepen between the two of you, that my job's not to take away from that. It's to bring him in and encourage him to be supporting you as best that he can, because he knows his partner so well and so intimately, and I know birth so well and so intimately, that we can work synergistically and bring in our strengths. So where he's strong, I might be weak, and where he's weak, I'm going to be strong. And we bring that energy, and it's exacerbated, it's intensified, it's exponential. So I'll definitely be in the birthing room.
Wow, that's amazing. You're there to see all these beautiful babies coming in.
It is just the most incredible, honoring, humbling experience. It's just such a sacred thing, and I just feel so honored and blessed to be in that space.
I'm not surprised. It's something, again, that I work with patients who I work 3 weeks with them before birth. Okay. So I've done a course, I've studied what Deborah Betts does. She's a midwife in Australia, and she uses acupuncture to soften the cervix. So it helps to there's been several studies done, so it decreases labor time by an hour, and it reduces the section rate. It's a powerful treatment to have. Now, you're not actually, you can work with induction as well with acupuncture, but this is just working to get you ready to deliver your baby, so that you in a very good, healthy way. It's pretty amazing. And as an acupuncturist, you can tell where, if the time is coming. You can't do the exact day, but when I've had ladies in, I'm like, no, your baby is not
ready.
No, absolutely, straight away. Or yes, your baby is going to be along here in not, in a few days time. You can't tell the exact time.
Yeah.
Days time. And I think that's another thing that's very hard, is the due date. And I know in France they give them a window of 2 weeks, and here it's a day. So when your day comes, especially the first time, if you've gone early, it's fine, but when your day comes, nothing happens. It's like,
and then everybody's phoning you and putting pressure on you. Have you gone into labor? Have you had your baby? And that just makes all the stress hormones increase, and then you don't want, then your body's not ready to have a baby.
No.
I mean, the majority of people, I think 3 or 5% of babies are born on their due date. So the best thing to do on your due date, on your estimated due date, is to make plans, because you're probably not going to have your baby on that day.
That's great advice, actually.
Yeah. And I mean, the pressure of, 40 weeks, we need to bring you in for a stretch and sweep. And it's like, you don't have to go in and have an induction. You don't have to go in and have a stretch and sweep. If you look back and you study induction, that whole the estimated due dates, that was developed or discovered in the 1800s, and it was on a woman's 28-day cycle, and she had to be ovulating on day 14. And how many women actually have a 28-day cycle and they're that regular and are ovulating on day 14? It's not a lot of people. So it really should be a window of time, So if you don't want to have interventions and inductions and stretches and sweeps, you can say no. At the end of the day, it's your body, it's your birth, and you can say, no, thank you very much.
there is a fear of that, because I can imagine. Now, I'm lucky all my babies came early, so I think Hannah was a day early, but I was in hospital. I had to get induced because I had toxemia at the end of my pregnancy. So it was more for health reasons, like there was a risk to baby and my health. So and James came 2 weeks early and Amber came a week early. So for me, I didn't have that fear of doing the sweep, but I ended up with sections for some reason, just didn't dilate. That just didn't happen for me. So I tried 2 times to have them normally, but ended up with sections. And then my third baby, you don't get a choice, you have to go for a section. And funny enough, that made me way more scared going in, even though I went into labor again myself with Amber. I was really scared going in for the section, because the other ones were more emergencies. Now, they weren't completely crazy emergencies, but they were just like, we have to get the baby out now. Nothing's happening here. Nothing's progressing. So it was just for safety of baby and me. So that was fine. And it felt more natural. I know that sounds crazy, going for a section felt more natural, but with Amber, I knew it was planned. And I remember going in, and I remember with PJ with me, and I was like, why are you shaking so much? And he goes, it's not me shaking, it's you. I was like, what? I thought it was him shaking, but my whole body was shaking going in.
I suppose when you've got the date set on the calendar, it just comes closer and closer, and your brain plays tricks on you, and puts questions and doubts and fear inside you. And then that whole fear cycle just perpetuates.
Yes. So the ladies that go over, it's just to trust yourself, trust your instincts, is what you're saying.
And trust your body. You've been designed to give birth, and your baby and you need to work together for that to happen. And it's actually the baby that releases a hormone from its lungs, saying, okay, I'm ready to start breathing air into my lungs. And it releases a hormone that causes your uterus to contract, which causes oxytocin to be released, causing your uterus to contract. So it's actually waiting until the baby's ready and mature enough, and it's trusting that your baby knows what to do. I mean, we've never heard of women being pregnant forever, so
that's so true.
I say to my clients, you're pregnant for 8 months and a year, because that last month really does drag, and everybody's so anxious to have this baby out, and you put on a clock, and if we just stop looking at clocks and trust Mother Nature and the way our bodies are meant to do what they're meant to do, there'd be so far less interventions, and one intervention leads to another intervention, and then you've got this snowball effect where you're just heading on the cesarean route.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it is true. It is true, actually. And I think cesareans were advertised a little bit by the media and stuff as being kind of, like the posh way to have a baby, which it isn't really, because I know myself that you do take a much longer time to recover. And then because you have that cesarean, I mean, my scar is very small, it's only tiny, but it does loosen that muscle tone, which has an effect on your pelvis and different areas. So it does, and it's something that I've had to work on to get strong again, because I would be, it would twist quite a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's major surgery that you've gone through. I mean, to get to your uterus, they don't cut the muscle, but they've got to get it out the way. I mean, it really is major surgery, and you're not meant to be picking up more than 10 pounds. That's 5 kilograms. Your baby is 375, and then the baby carrier, that you shouldn't be carrying that around.
We do that, unfortunately.
And life goes on. Some people have still got, they've got other toddlers, and toddlers need to be reassured, and they want to be picked up, and a mother can't not do that. So the recovery from a cesarean is big.
It is big, and it's more natural to give birth in a natural way. Actually, it's better for the baby, isn't it, when it gets pushed out of the uterus, with all the fluids from the vagina, and it does some, it switches on mechanisms as it's pushed through the uterus. That's probably something that you would know more about than me.
Yeah, I mean, and then the whole microbiome, and seeding your baby with all the good bacteria through natural childbirth is only just, we're only just starting to scratch the surface of the benefits of that. So
what kind of birth plans would you typically have? What is it? Is it varied, or is it?
It's totally unique to each client. They might do a hypnobirthing course, and they want nobody to touch them. They don't want, they don't want questions asked to them. They want everybody to refer to their partner. Others might want, to have music playing, and they want to have a dance party, and they're wanting it to be fun, and, mom's wanting to move and boogie. And so they really are so different and unique as each person who comes in. So it really is just looking at all the options that are available and saying, oh, well, yes, I like the idea of water as a pain coping technique, and I'd like to birth my baby in water, or I want to give birth, I don't want to give birth on my back. I don't want to be on all fours, or I want my husband or partner to catch the baby, so it really is unique to each client, and whatever suits them.
How does the water help you with pain?
Well, all my babies were water babies. So I've got 3 mermen. So water, just the warmth of the water is just so comforting. And then I'm sure that that when we're close to water, we automatically relax because there's so many positive ions around the surface of water. And then just getting into that warm water is just so comforting, and you become weightless. So, I just found that when I got into the water, my labor progressed very quickly and intensified, but I was buoyant, and I was, I didn't feel that pressure that I was feeling on land. So it was just very comforting. And then also, nobody could reach me. And so I wasn't having vaginal examinations or anything like that. So I just felt very protected and comforted and soothed in the water. But it's not for everybody. Some people just were like, I spoke to my last client was like, no, I don't want to be around water at all. I think that would just make me feel a bit claustrophobic. So, it is a personal thing, but water birth is an incredible option.
What about home birthing? Because I remember a client last year, actually. She was, she's had a baby now, a little girl. She was very nervous because it was the time of lockdown, and at that time partners weren't allowed in. Now this was at the beginning, so I think in the end her partner was allowed in for the last hour, and it was very difficult it was very, very difficult, very stressful. So I said, what about a home birth? Because they live very close to a hospital, so that if things weren't right, they could go in. And it was no. It was just like no.
Really?
So
she said no, or the hospital said no?
Both. He wasn't up for it at all. He would have been very scared for her, and then she just said no.
Okay. Well, if the client it feels like that, then home birth, for birth to progress, you need to feel safe, secure, and loved. So if she did not feel secure at home, her labor wouldn't progress well. So she wouldn't have been an ideal candidate for home birth. Home births since COVID have skyrocketed. They've gone through the roof. So I think home births are beautiful. You're in your own environment. You can, make your birth environment beautiful. You can turn off the lights. You can put on fairy lights and candles and have affirmations all over and photographs of your children or beautiful places that you've been to. You can obviously take those with you to your birth environment. If you're in a hospital, you can do that, of course. And home birth is no more dangerous. It is a safe option if you are not contraindicated with, let's say you've got high blood pressure, or you needing an induction, or you under consultant care because of complications. But if you've got no complications, then it's a wonderful option, and it's a safe option. It's the same as the risk factor is the same as if you were in a midwife-led unit. And the midwives are trained to deal with emergencies, and they can see, when you're in labor, you don't just get all of a sudden, oh, this is an emergency, we need to give you a section. There's a gradual progression, and the midwives will be able to see, okay, labor's not progressing, it's slowed down, we needing to give an oxytocin drip or something like that. So hospital transfer would be called for then. So emergencies don't happen at the click of a finger. There is a gradual progression to that, that the midwives would be trained to see and be aware of.
That's huge, actually. I think that's a big one. I think for a lot of people, it would be the fear of that they needed to get, like, say, a section straight away, that something was wrong. But it's lovely to hear that it's more of a progression, that the midwives would be aware of it, and you'd have time to get to a hospital if you needed to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because I know a client, again, who had home births, and she had her first baby. She had four babies, first two in hospital and the last two at home. And she said that on hindsight, if she'd known how lovely it was to have them at home, she would have had them all at home. Yeah,
it changes the whole dynamic. Midwives are really hands off. They leave you. I've been to home births, and they, if the mom doesn't want any interventions or whatever, the midwives leave the room. They'll be sitting in the kitchen filling out their pages and pages and pages of notes. And they'll be coming in to monitor the baby every 20 minutes or so. And they leave you to it. And, if you're wanting a midwife to be with you and you wanting that support, then obviously she's going to honor what you do. So home births are just so beautiful. They really are amazing.
Wow, it's something I never even thought of myself, I'll be honest. I just was quite happy. Well, I had to go in hospital earlier before Hannah, so it was just the progress that happened for me. It was the way it happened.
Yeah.
But there is a very important stage, and again, it comes from a Chinese medicine philosophy, is, when the mother has had the baby, is about feeding the mother, not I don't mean like junk food or cakes and that stuff. It's about nourishing the mother so that she recovers her energy. And they do a treatment called mother warming, which again nourishes back the womb, helps the womb contract back. And it's about resting, that 2 weeks of resting, and that someone else, you feed your baby, but everything else is taken care of
for you. Absolutely. Yeah. There's a brilliant book called The First 40 Days. It's by a Chinese lady, Heng Wu. It's Heng, and her surname is OU. And she talks exactly about this. I would not be able to pronounce what it is. Zuo. I can't pronounce what it is. But it's basically that. It's putting the mother to bed and giving her warm, nourishing foods. And they, in Chinese and a lot of Eastern traditions, they do a lot of belly binding just to bring everything back into its pre-pregnancy state.
Yes.
And it is a beautiful thing. In the Netherlands, they're given a doula from the state for 2 weeks.
Really?
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
That's fantastic.
Yeah, because I say to my clients, right, you need to be resting. I try and encourage them to stay in their pajamas for a week and stay in bed for a week, and then, you know, just make sure that they're resting every day. But in the Western culture, it's busy and there's things to do and people to see, and
I know it is very true, because that resting period not only helps you recover, but it's also very good for your pelvic floor, which it's fine when you're younger and you've just had your baby, but it does affect you likely down the line. Yeah, it really does. And I can say that it does. And you can work on it. And I have a podcast about that as well, with Louise. So there's something that you can work on, but it does affect you. So that, you know, that those 2 weeks after you've had your baby are so important. And you're right, it is about, we're having visitors, so we're getting up and making tea and cakes for them and making sure the house is tidy in case someone comes in. And really that time should be rest, you know, is your rest time. And I think it's about saying no, going, no, please don't visit me for 2 weeks, setting that boundary.
Absolutely. Yeah. And protecting that space, because, you know, it's also, it's a beautiful opportunity for you to be bonding with your baby in bed, breastfeeding, skin to skin, you know, just taking your time to discover each other, because as much as that you love that baby, it's a stranger and you've got to adjust to each other. And it's like learning to dance with each other, and what are your cues meaning, and what does that grunt mean, and what does that cry mean? And it all takes time.
It does take time. You're absolutely right. It does take time. So if anyone would like to contact you, I will put the details in underneath the podcast or underneath the YouTube channel. And is there any, well, obviously I'm based in the south of Ireland. People in the south it would be too far, but they could do Zoom calls and stuff with you. Is there a network where people can contact different doula consultants?
There is. So there's Doula UK you can look at. There is an association in Ireland, and I just can't think of it offhand. I would have to get back to you on that.
But they can contact you anyway. Anybody can contact you.
Oh, please do. Yes, I'm happy to answer any questions or point you in the right direction. Happy to help in any way that I can.
And you've got all those lovely ladies anyway from the north of Ireland that you'll be helping as well.
Absolutely.
You have been so amazing, and I've learned so much today. I didn't know about the lung, how that hormone is released to start your labor. That's something that I didn't know, which is amazing. And you know, the fact that you can get support through your birth, and because it's a big scare of people, and you hear the horror stories, so it's lovely to hear that it can be a beautiful, yeah, it is, you know, it is not can be, it is a beautiful,
and it should be,
yes,
it should be, yeah
to go through. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Very
it's
welcome.
Been really insightful and enjoyable.
Good. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm glad we connected.
Yes, so am I.